Okay, welcome everyone. I think we're ready to get started. My name is Sarah Ostman. I am a Deputy Director in the American Library Association's Public Programs Office, and I am so glad that you could join us today for Going Virtual, Programs and Insights from a Time of Crisis. If you're still coming into the room and getting situated, please introduce yourself in the chat box and let us know a favorite virtual program that you have either hosted or attended. Before we start, I want to give a quick shout out to the National Endowment for the Humanities, whose generous support of ALA made possible both today's webinar and the Going Virtual book that today's webinar is based on. We so appreciate all of their support over the many years that they have been supporting ALA and libraries. A few brief technical notes. You've probably noticed by now that only our presenters have video and microphone access, but you, of course, are welcome to type in the chat box. Please note that the chat box defaults to sending to all panelists. To make sure everyone sees your message, be sure to select all panelists and attendees in the dropdown. If you have tech issues, please use the Q&A window to communicate with ALA staff. I have two fabulous colleagues, Hannah and Elena, who are here and ready to assist anyone who needs help. To send a message using the Q&A feature, move your cursor to your Zoom window and click on Q&A. So over the next hour, you will hear about 5 virtual library programs, all created during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, a time when librarians, like the rest of the world, were facing a reality that most of us could never have imagined and certainly weren't prepared for. Today, we're going to hear about 5 programs: The History of Witchcraft from Evelyn Shapiro, COVID-19 Misinformation Challenge from Jen Benet and Senta Sellers, Hot Dog Man by Chris Heedy, Bilingual Quentahan by Selena Tarona, and Bookfix by Cara Brancoli. All of these programs were featured in the book Going Virtual that was published by ALA Editions earlier this year. It is available in the ALA store and on Amazon and various other places. We base the idea for this webinar today on the lightning talks that you may have seen at in-person conferences. So we're going for really quick snapshots of several different programs, just to get enough to give you an idea of how the program worked and hopefully send you away with a couple new ideas for you to try out at your library. So we will hear from each of the speakers, and then we'll have some time for questions with all of them at the end. But before we dive in, I want to take just a minute to remind all of us where we were in spring and summer 2020, because that, to me at least, feels like an absolute lifetime ago. This is a quote from Chelsea Price, director of the Meservey Public Library in Iowa. She is a writer for our ALA Programming Librarian website. And I think it just brilliantly sums up how pretty much everyone was feeling in the early days of COVID. She wrote, "I'm willing to bet your education and training did not prepare you for this. The world is a dumpster fire, and we are all just doing the best we can." So feel free to drop a few words in the chat about what that time was like for you in your library. Personally, I remember it as a time of just intense confusion, with libraries glued to health department websites for recommendations, putting toys and high-touch items into closets, so much sanitizing, removing chairs to try to enforce social distancing, and so much more. Yes, chaos. Things were changing literally by the hour, absolutely. On the other hand, I also remember a surge in librarians helping one another out and figuring things out together. People were sharing their story times on social media, and online message boards exploded with people sharing their resources and tips. The Public Library Association did a survey during that time from March 24th to April 1st, and they found that 98% of public libraries at that time were closed to the public. 61% of their respondents, and I believe about 3,700 libraries responded, were adding virtual programs to their schedule at that point. 2 months later, the situation was not much better. In May 2020, ALA did another survey of all library types, and 99% had limited access policies in place, such as being open for curbside. So what did all of that mean for you all, for libraries? So libraries had their work cut out for them. You all had to figure out how to serve your patrons in a time of the greatest possible need, when it was harder than ever to connect. And the response, as I think we all saw, was just a huge list of innovations, from curbside pickup to increased digital services, asynchronous activities, take and make kits. I saw some really creative window displays to keep folks with their kids busy as they were walking down the street, phone outreach, and of course, virtual programming, which is what we are going to be talking about today. So with that, I am going to introduce our first speaker. Evelyn Shapiro is the promotions manager at Champaign Public Library in Illinois. She enjoys the magic of connecting community members for author talks, food truck rallies, solar eclipse viewing parties, and of connecting 100,000 armchair historians worldwide for her program, The History of Witchcraft, which she's going to be talking about. Evelyn holds a BA in art from Wesleyan University in Connecticut. And Evelyn, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I will be sharing a virtual program called The History of Witchcraft that my public library hosted in collaboration with the Rare Book and Manuscript Library at the University of Illinois. What started out as a small lecture went viral, and amazingly, we ended up with 3,000 attendees and interest from more than 100,000 people worldwide. As my library's promotions manager, I'm going to talk about the marketing that went into making this a success. Here's how we struck gold with this partnership. Last fall, amid virtual story times, business webinars, my colleague Madeline Wolski conjured an evening of what we've called educational escapism for dark times with two charismatic curators from the campus library. They plan to feature 16th and 17th century European manuscripts and explore witchcraft history through to modern day. So what was so special about this event and how we got the word out? In some ways, we approached this as we approach every event we promote. The presenters provided a beautiful, iconic image, and we used that throughout all of our promotions for the lobby slide, the newsletter article, the Facebook event, the Zoom room. Luckily, we have an established format and a palette of fonts and design approaches that support our library branding. Even though this was a short timeline, we were able to use those. So in terms of promotion, we had something we could use right away to frame it. As you can see with the next slide, we keep our promotions really simple, maybe deceptively simple. No logos, very succinct messaging. Our in-house designer, Gloria Rubel, created this one. If you go to the next slide, in terms of our newsletter, I had to bump the originally planned content. So I made this one the lead, rewrote the teaser, and then I went ahead and sent that out to 15,000 library lovers. So we also created a Facebook event, as I mentioned. And something really interesting started happening right away. If you go to the next slide, this is sort of what it felt like. We had within 24 hours, 200 people marking interested or going, and we thought that was a lot. And then over the weekend, there was even more interest and sharing and likes. People were tagging friends and saying, let's go together. And we started seeing comments from many faraway places. By Monday morning, we realized that we were already exceeding our own Zoom room limits, which was 100 spots. We had a chance to talk with our campus contacts, and they said, well, at the university, we have 500 seats. So we figured out a way to move our registrations over, expand the room so we could accommodate 500 people, but we blew through that within another day. So things were just heating up. They were going really fast. Waves were sort of crashing over on Facebook. And those 500 free seats, of course, sold out very quickly. So along the way, we had to be really flexible in terms of marketing messaging. We had to shift our message from, hey, come to this great webinar. And instead we had to say, we had a chance to say, isn't it amazing that this public library, public university partnership here on the prairie, that we've had a chance to connect people from all over the world. So that became the story that we promoted. Of course, behind the scenes, a lot of work was going on to create it as a live stream event, but It was not a sure thing right away. My colleagues did work it out, which I'm really thankful of. And at a certain point, I was able to announce, okay, we're going to go live stream with this. And we got to change the messaging from sign up to get the Zoom link and instead use, broadcast live, go to champaign.org/live. And if you go to the next slide, this is a peek at our long form Facebook event with co-host, which reached more than 2 million people in the end. If you go to the next slide, you can see the stats of how many we reached, and 136,000 people marked interested or going, which are just crazy numbers. If you go to the next slide, you can see just a few of the places people said that they were from: Athens, Baku, Mexico City. We had people from literally all over. If you go to the next slide, I did go fishing. My press contacts led to 2 interviews, and those were published before the event. They were wonderful. Curators were wonderful interviewees. And that gave me content I could link to, which was very useful for promotions. If you go to the next slide, you can see that we had so many comments, hundreds of comments. Ruth Gordon was from the UK. She was very happy that in her time zone, it was going to broadcast at midnight because that was the true witching hour. Our event in real time resulted in close to 3,000 people tuning in live on Zoom, on YouTube with unexpectedly the comments turned on, and on Facebook. We ended up with 8 staffers behind the scenes who were managing those comment streams and questions, and used a real-time channel through Microsoft Teams to communicate with the event host, Madeline. She was on screen. If you go to the next slide, you can see a little peek at some of the content we were able to share. We were able to funnel all the comments and questions that were happening in real time to her, and she could bring those questions to our presenters and for the Q&A. We also were involved with deleting spam along the way. That was a big part of our project. The recording has been viewed 23,000 times with hours and hours spent with this content, including a really wonderful Q&A. And I know you'll all enjoy checking out the recording. Our adult services manager said this event was a delightful mix of feminism, witches, scholarly interpretations, and librarian nerdiness, right? It was so much fun. That was Trisha Duzan. And if you go to the next slide, and then the next one, I want to say this is not what we do on a regular basis, although we maybe do the same kinds of promotions and they have results of maybe 20 or 25 people joining. We would be very happy with an event like that too, if people take away a very wonderful experience, if their lives are enriched after being in a small room. But this was exciting. And I just want to encourage you to take away from our experience that you shouldn't ever underestimate the power of a great partnership. It's a chance to leverage each other's strengths, whether it's marketing savvy or Zoom room capacity. And, it's worth dreaming big. So I look forward to being in touch, and I'd love to hear about your creative partnerships.
Thank you so much, Evelyn. And you have such great tips in that last slide that we're going to send that out to everyone who is registered for today's webinar. So don't feel bad if you didn't get to read that too closely. Next up, we have Jen Bonet and Senta Sellers talking about the COVID-19 Misinformation Challenge. Jen Bonet is a social sciences and humanities librarian at the University of Maine. She has co-designed programs on topics like misinformation, news literacy, racial justice, finding funding, and how to get published. Whenever possible, she is out camping, canoeing, or experimenting with baked goods. And Senta is a business librarian at Miami University. She graduated from the University of Oklahoma with an MLIS in 2008 and has worked previously for Langston University, Cambridge University Press, and the University of Maine. And while at the University of Maine, she had the pleasure of working with Jen Bonet. Take it over, Jen and Senta. Thank you.
Thank you. And the feeling to work with Senta was mutual. So speaking of, in May of 2020, Senta and I designed the COVID-19 Misinformation Challenge. This was our attempt to not only build connections with our various library user communities from a distance and in creative ways, but also to counter rampant rumors and conjecture around COVID-19. Our hope was that people might take away a few strategies about information access and sense-making during a crisis. So this remote asynchronous program allowed anyone with an internet connection and an email address to think critically about ways to combat false or misleading information surrounding COVID-19. Each day for 5 days, people who registered for the program received an email with several quizzes designed to test their knowledge of the novel coronavirus while having fun and learning something new. Participants could use any means they like to answer the questions: friends, family, their favorite search engine, and the questions focused on evaluating information on everything from memes, doctors, the news headlines, the treatments, and even some of the science behind the virus. On the next slide, we give you a better sense of what each day was like.
Specifically, day one, the virus goes viral, had participants determining the authenticity of several social media posts. Day two, trick or treatment, had participants examining statements about the efficacy of treatments discussed in the news. Day three, Doctor or Doctored, asked participants to determine the qualifications of people with doctor in their title to dispense advice on COVID-19. Day four, Fact or Fiction Toilet Paper Edition, asked participants to determine the veracity of a range of headlines on COVID-19 and toilet paper. And finally, day five, day five, Science or Science Fiction, had participants considering the accuracy of various studies published on the virus. Each day, participants submitted their responses to our questions through Google Forms, and we provided automated feedback on each question upon submission. Next slide, please.
So now it's your turn to try it out. Here is an example quiz question from day 4 of the challenge, the toilet paper edition day. Is the following story real or fake? Oregon police remind residents, don't call 911 if you run out of toilet paper. Feel free to take a guess in chat. Is this story real or fake?
We're getting a lot of real. Yeah. Okay. One person hopes it's fake. Okay. Well, actually, you guys are all pretty much correct. It's real. In addition to feedback on each of the questions answered, we provided resources and strategies as part of this day's content to help participants sort fact from fiction. We also point to material that proves insights into the many challenges journalists were facing during the COVID crisis. And next slide, please.
So this asynchronous email-based approach, as we mentioned, to programming allowed for a diversity of attendance, and it provided learning at participants' own pace and convenience. We had participation across the US from Maine to Hawaii, as well as international representation in Canada, Hungary, the Netherlands, Jordan, China, and beyond. We heard from parents taking the challenge with children, partners and spouses comparing notes and scores, and teachers sharing the challenge with their students. Costs were minimal. The challenge was housed in a live guide, and we used Google Forms for the quizzes, as Senta mentioned. So most of the cost was really staff time. All of our content was free to access for participants without a need for logins or credentials. On the next slide, we share a bit about how we got the word out about the program.
So we had over 500 people take the challenge. The key to participation was publicity and the timeliness of a topic, which seemed to really excite people. Outreach included the typical places for a university library, like our liaison departments, university listservs, people who previously attended our programs, and social media. But we also reached out to external listservs, like those affiliated with the American Library Association, the Association for College and Research Libraries, and a state-specific libraries email list, in an effort to reach fellow librarians and their various user communities. This is in addition to the attention we got through word of mouth among family, friends, and colleagues. Next slide, please.
We received a wide range of solicited and unsolicited feedback on the challenge. Participants seemed to have a good time participating in the program, with people specifically mentioning taking pleasure in the diverse types of questions and feedback that we offered. Instructors reached out to express an interest in providing the challenge to their students or adapting it to their courses, for example. And one participant even noted that not only was the challenge fun and instructive, but after participating, it was time to go wash their hands. If you're interested in taking the challenge or seeing it in more detail, the materials are fully available and accessible online, and the link has been shared in chat. But you can also, if you've come in since the link was shared, you can Google COVID-19 misinformation challenge in UMaine. And we really invite you to take a look and reach out with any questions or suggestions.
Thanks, Jen Vicenta. Next up is Chris Heedy. And Chris, am I saying your last, is it Heedy or Hetty?
It's Heedy. Yep.
Okay. Chris Heedy, an artist, actor, puppeteer, award-winning filmmaker, and dreamer, currently working for Carroll County Public Library's Outreach Department. He's a former associate digital puppeteer for the Hershey Company. He portrayed the conductor of the Hogwarts Express in the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, and he has puppeteered for Walt Disney World. So Chris, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, so I'm here today to tell you a little bit about Hot Dog Man, a character that I created at the start of the pandemic to provide both like comedic relief and to highlight library resources. So you might be asking yourself, like, what is Hot Dog Man? It's a great question. So the basic premise of the show was Mr. Chris turns into a hot dog one evening after eating too many hot dogs, and he refuses to go out into public because he's afraid that the public's going to try to eat him the minute that they see him. So instead, he finds fun activities to do inside, thanks to the library. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this is the basic outline of the episodes. Like, Hot Dog Man has a problem. He uses the library resource, and then he finds a creative solution to the original problem. Over 7 episodes, which I got to star in, and I got to make with my wife, which is really fun. She plays Frank the dog, who is Hot Dog Man's roommate. The services, library services that we promoted over those episodes included like online streaming services like Hoopla and Canopy, the Express pickup services, Tales and Tales summer reading program, Storytime Express contactless deliveries, Makerspace 3D printing, make and learn kits, and using Zoom, because there was a time where that was all new. Next slide, please. Yeah, so we're going to be watching the intro. This is the intro to every episode of Hot Dog Man. Here we go. Boop.
Meet Mr. Chris.
Hi.
He's a wacky 30-something librarian living with his lovable dog, Frank. He was living the dream life until one day, Mr. Chris woke up looking like this. Worried whether society will accept him, Mr. Chris discovers fun activities that he can do indoors. It's another fun and exciting episode of Hot Dog Man.
Yep. So that's it's a lot of fun.
Mr. Chris.
Next slide, please. No. Here's our Facebook data for the first episode of Hot Dog Man. We reached an estimated 4,000 people, which is amazing. But when you break down that Facebook information, really it resulted in about 315 people watching past a minute. But more importantly, we saw our Facebook group grow exponentially because of the online programming content that we made through the outreach department. Our little tiny channel that nobody really knew about grew from 293 likes to 692 over the time of the pandemic. Although some people might say we're still living in the pandemic. Next slide, please. Yeah, and that was one of the neat things, is like word spread that there was a grown man dressed up as a hot dog, and the local press wanted to interview and find out more about how this is being promoting library materials. So the Baltimore Sun did an article, and Fox 45 came out and did a news segment, which was great because if you look at the next slide, news got to the Oscar Mayer Wiener Company, and they were like, hey, how can we get involved with Hot Dog Man? So they drove the Wienermobile across the United States to appear in our like season finale, which is awesome. if you ever get to see the Wienermobile, get on the Wienermobile, do so. Next slide, please. Yeah, so I had included here just a couple things of what I learned, what sizzled, what stunk. Sizzled, I mean, trusting instincts, right? This is a very unconventional idea for a library to do. And Carroll County Public Library said yes, which is great. That's so invaluable. Consistent audience engagement. We had people constantly in the chat segments being like, oh my gosh, when's the next one? Hot Dog Man coming out? It is rewatchable. So you can watch an episode of Hot Dog Man and it doesn't have to be in COVID times. So we're still to this day having people rewatch old episodes. It's highlighting these library resources. A lot of people came to me and they were like, oh my gosh, Chris, I had no idea your library offered all of these amazing services. Thanks to Hot Dog Man. We grew our channel, yay. And Oscar Mayer, media outlets, that's great. What's unfortunate is that, a decreased attendance over time. As people went back to work, not watching as many online programming videos. And we saw a drop in watching things past 10 minutes. So if you're trying to be a TV making movie kind of thing, no. Online audience wants it brief and short and to the point. So about a minute. And also going back to work, librarians, we had to do all of our existing responsibilities in addition to making still online programming. And also just burnout. It takes a lot of creative energy to put out, a show like Hot Dog Man, but it's totally worth it because if you watch it, it's a lot of fun. Thanks so much, everybody. If you go to the next slide, this is my contact information. Reach out and we'll talk more about Hot Dog Man later. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. And I highly recommend going to Carroll County's Facebook page and checking out the series. I literally laughed out loud several times. Next up, we have Selena Torona. Selena is a library assistant at the Daly City Public Library. She is currently pursuing her MLIS at Dominican University and is a 2021 ALA Spectrum Scholar and ILA Sylvia Murphy Williams Scholar. Her work focuses on celebrating the rich Filipinx American culture that she shares with Daly City, her hometown. Thanks, Selena. Do you want me to go right into the video?
Hey everyone, it's Ate Selena with the Daly City Public Library and welcome to Bilingual Kwentuhan. So this is our bilingual Tagalog English story time where I share Tagalog children's songs and books from the library's collection. Nagaganda umakyat sa sanga dumating So this song translates to hi, how are you all? I'm so happy and glad that you're here. Kamusta, 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 kamusta kayong lahat? Ako'y tuwang-tuwa, masaya. And her mother lived peacefully in a town called Santa. As a child, she watched invaders exploit the people who lived on Santa.
Next slide. Hi, everyone. So as Video Me said, I'm Ate Selena, and I've been doing story times at the Daly City Public Library for over 5 years now. But this was a special project for me during the pandemic because I could only comfortably do this if it was pre-recorded. So English is my first language, and while I understand Tagalog, I don't speak it well enough to do this program in person. So doing this from home with the magic of video editing was the perfect way to make this program happen. Another way for the library to connect with the community and increase circulation for our Tagalog collection. To break down my flyer here, Kwentuhan means story time in Tagalog. And for the most part, I introduce myself as Ate or Big Sister instead of Miss to imitate cuentistas or storytellers from the Philippines that I saw online. Next slide.
So the program didn't come to mind at first when our programming went virtual. So I wanted to give shout outs to my inspiration here. On the left, we have Carroll, who I went to college with, who shared a video of himself reading on the local news and made me think I could do that. So I thought I'd try it. And an hour later, I had the chords ready for 2 songs on the ukulele that I remembered from childhood, and I ran them past my mom for pronunciation before letting my coworker know that I wanted to add this to our summer programming. And I got planning to get the program ready for a premiere 3 weeks later. On the right, I have Kuya, or Big Brother James, from the National Library of the Philippines Book Cart Project page, and I loved watching his story times while I prepared mine. Next slide. So when I saw Gerald's video, I'd been doing a story time live on Facebook once a week for about a month, and I was thinking, how hard could it be to do this in Tagalog? I put all the elements for putting together a virtual story time on this slide. So you got to get books, read aloud permissions, songs and chords if you're playing music, and you have to film it, of course. But on the next slide, you'll see what I actually got myself into, which I was not ready for. So for starters, I had no idea what was in the library's Tagalog collection outside of a few of my favorite books from growing up. So I had to see what we had and figure out what I could use. And then I had to contact publishers to see what I could actually read. This was probably the hardest part. I had to contact publishers with a 15-hour time difference in mind, calling when I could, using email, and surprisingly, Facebook Messenger to get those permissions. From there, I had to find a handful of songs and come up with chords as needed because most songs didn't have chords online the way English songs do. And then again, I called my mom to make sure my Tagalog was okay. Next slide. So the program turned out gorgeous, if I may say so myself. You can find the full videos on the Daly City Public Library Facebook page or by using this bit.ly link. In terms of format, each video was about 15 minutes on average with 4 to 5 songs, mixing songs that have English counterparts and songs that are only in Tagalog and then translating them. And then I'd add 1 book from the library's Tagalog or Filipiniana collection read in English. I would use Facebook's premiere feature to live stream and comment throughout the program time. And once I had more of an audience, this was probably the best part because I could say hi to returning viewers and families and ask for feedback. So I used viewer comments to take song requests and make changes, leading to me adding in a classic children's song, adding O and U vowels to our version of apples and bananas, and learning about other Filipino languages they wanted to see included. Next slide. So how did I get my viewers and repeat viewers? This was my marketing strategy, AKA finding Filipinos on Facebook. So 1/3 of Daly City's residents are Filipino. And even though they probably weren't following the library yet, I had to find them. So I joined every Facebook group I could and messaged various pages, asking them to share, leading to the response I got on the next slide. So yeah, here's the response to that first video. Over 8,000 3-second views with over 500 sticking around for more than a minute, 4,300 minutes viewed total, and over 28,000 people reached. I also wanted to throw the places we reached on here because while we met our goal of reaching Filipinos in Daly City, from what I saw in the comments, we were also able to reach Filipinos everywhere. So later videos kept up with 200 to 300 views on average, with ups and downs for special events and changes in schedule. But overall, this was a really successful series for us, and I'm hopeful that one day I'll feel confident enough to do it in person. This program taught me that if you've got something you want to do, just go for it and market it like crazy, because there's an audience out there waiting for you and the work will pay off. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, Selena. I hope someday you do try that in person. I would like to see. So our final program comes from Cara Broncoli. She is a high school librarian at St. Ignatius College Prep in San Francisco. Prior to joining St. Ignatius, Cara was a public librarian for more than 10 years. She enjoys applying the principles of innovative programming she honed in the public sector to her work with high school students. And Cara is going to talk about Bookfix.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I'm really happy to be here with everyone today and hear about all the amazing creative programs that are happening all over the country. So thank you. The program that we'll be discussing is called Bookfix. And if we move to the next slide, I can tell you a little bit about the background and how the inspiration behind it really. So along with most schools in the country, we abruptly closed our doors in March of 2020 to help stop the spread of the coronavirus. And for the rest of the school year, Christina Wenger, our library director, and I were really reacting to that unbelievable change. But during the summer, we were able to catch our breath and come up with a strategic, more proactive plan for the new normal in the fall. We wanted to really continue to support the research and information literacy needs of our students and faculty, but we also wanted to continue to build a reading culture in our school during the closure of the physical building. So we came up with an umbrella program called The Wilsey Library is Open, and it included a YouTube channel that housed all of our instructional video content, a live chat feature on our website, and Bookfix. So what is Bookfix? It's an online subscription book service that knocks off the look and feel of Stitch Fix, an online clothing subscription service that you may be familiar with. If we go to the next slide. So Bookfix was really designed to get physical books in the hands of our community and create a sense of joy and connection at a time when those feelings were in short supply. It included a dedicated website where anyone from our community, students, faculty, administration, could fill out a personal style quiz about their reading likes and dislikes, and then receive 3 books based on their quiz answers at home by mail. The next slide. This was a promotional video that we put together, and it gives an overview of the program and how it works.
Oh, hello, SI. You caught me reading a book. An actual physical book. How did I get my hands on one? Let me tell you about it.
We've shared with you already how to check out books through San Francisco Public Library and our own library collection, digital books that is. But I want to talk about physical books today because sometimes they're hard to get our hands on during this period of time. To access our physical collection, go to siprep.org/library. You'll see we're open. Scroll down on the page. Find the link that says Bookfix. Click it. Get you to our Bookfix page, a page set up for us to get good books into your hands. Complete the quiz. Tell us your interests. The librarians will review your interests, choose really good books for you, and mail them directly to your home. On this page, you'll also find book recommendation resources if you're interested in choosing a book on your own, a specific book. Otherwise, you can leave it up to us. Ms. Brancoli and I will use what we learn about you and what we know about books to make great choices for you. So to tell us about yourself, go to the personal book style quiz. Fill it out. You'll notice at the very end, it asks if you'd prefer us to mail you the books or to leave them at the front desk for you. Complete your preferences. Once you've finished the books, reading them or not reading them if they didn't meet your interests, complete the feedback form so we know how well we did. That way we can do better next time. Then affix the enclosed postage back on the box you got the books in and return them to us. Easy peasy. With Bookfix, you get personally selected books in your hands for free.
So that kind of is the nuts and bolts of it. But as the book fixes started coming in, Christine and I rotated filling them. But in order to get to know our book fixers, as we call them, reading tastes better. If we had a repeat book fixer, then they went to the original book stylist, either me or Christina. And as you can see, this is a picture of our first book fix, and there we tried to put the emphasis on personal connection, developing an understanding of the book fixer's reading interests, and just really creating a fun gift-like packaging. Now that we're back on campus, book fixes are picked up on site, and we're actually training students to be book stylists, which is really fun. And go to the next slide. So in terms of executing the program, it was pretty straightforward. We created a website using Google Sites, and the personal style quiz and feedback form were also through Google Forms. Ordered bags, boxes, labels. We set up a postage account, created the branding, which was really a knockoff of Stitch Fix, using Canva, and promoted the program to our community with the video that you just saw, and as well as our library and school Instagram, parent newsletter, SITV, which is a student produced weekly announcement television show. And the budget in total, it cost us $334 in postage, $100 in packaging, and the faculty time was approximately 100 hours. The next slide. So we had 79 book fixes, 23 return clients, but the intangible results were really the most powerful to us. We got to know our community and the reading taste in a way that we hadn't pre-pandemic. And the feedback was extraordinarily positive. Several book fixers reported exploring genres that they hadn't explored before. Some of our book fixers were power users, but the program really provided a touchstone for connection during a very disconnected time that I'm sure everyone can attest to. And we demonstrated to our students, faculty, and administration that the library is not just a physical space, that we're much more than that. And kind of most simply, we provided physical books to our community at a time when that was very hard to come by and very much appreciated. So I know we'll have a Q&A, but please feel free to get in touch. I have templates and all kinds of things that I'm happy to share if anyone's interested in executing their own book fix.
Thanks so much, Kara. I would like you to be my book stylist. Before we do Q&A, I just want to give a huge online round of applause to our 5 presenters. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your programs with us today. We do have some time for questions, so I want to open it up to all of the presenters. If you could turn on your videos. And I will start us off with a question, but feel free to put additional questions into the chat. So to start, one question that I had, your programs are all extremely different, but I think they all managed to bring people together in creative ways during a very tumultuous time. Did you see evidence of that community building after the fact? And if so, what did that look like?
Well, I can share that we had community building both within our own team that really was transformed by that evening's happenings. And then also in our community, just sort of opening our idea that we could be connected with people elsewhere, that people were armchair historians in Australia, but we were here as well in Illinois. I think people found it fun. You know, we figured out a way to have fun with people when things were challenging.
I hope Senta will jump in too, but one thing that we noticed with COVID-19 Misinformation Challenge is because we were emailing people every day, that created kind of a personal connection for folks. And so they would email us back and tell us kind of what their experience was of that day's work. Or we had people who had been furloughed. I think someone mentioned that in the chat earlier, and they were saying, you know, this is something that I'm using to stay connected to my library community and to my information community. And so it built a connection for us to people all over the US and in other parts of the world that we didn't necessarily expect. And then I know we mentioned that there were lots of different affinity groups and folks doing some of the challenges together. And we would hear from those, like there would be parents and kids kind of competing against each other. And we'd hear back from these folks. And when we heard from instructors, as we mentioned, instructors of every type, whether it's a librarian or faculty member or a K-12 teacher who wanted to adapt this work in some way, they often talked about how they were experiencing it and why it would make sense for them. And so one of the most impactful things I think that I learned was making a program that is extendable and that is free and that is accessible, because we're at academic libraries and a lot of times our materials are not accessible. And so we were very intentional about that. And it was a further reinforcement, I think, for me that this is important.
I'll jump in. Yeah, I saw that it was neat to get to collaborate with other entertainment arts professionals who happened to be at home at this time during Hot Dog Man. And so it was great to be able to, you know, bring in their voices and, you know, to be able to collaborate with them remotely as we were making episodes. And I think it was also just really resonating to me. At one point, after a couple of episodes in, a friend of mine reached out and was like, hey, can you do a meet and greet over the phone with my kids? They love Hot Dog Man. And so I did. And they were just like in awe. They were just like awestruck. And they were like, and I think that's really just all that it's about. You know, I created this, you know, as a way to talk about COVID, but in a fun way. And it was really cool to get to have those meaningful interactions with people and to have something that people looked forward to in an otherwise unfortunate time.
Yeah, the community building aspect in my case was really, you know, easy to get to because of all of the comments I was getting. So it was really cool to like kind of be getting all of the feedback I would from a regular story time, like book requests and like chords, and kind of just like, you know, having that conversation of like, oh, I remember this song from my childhood. I really liked that. And just kind of, you know, really getting to bond with others over that cultural aspect was a really cool part of the program.
Yeah, I would say the connection building was really kind of built into the Bookfix program, just having conversations about books and hearing from our community members on, you know, what are their favorite stories and favorite authors and what, you know, why they like those books and what they're hoping for and how they're feeling at this moment. All of those things are so personal, and they were sharing them with us, and we were able to hear them and respond to it. And so that just, I feel like definitely built connection. And as someone else mentioned, you know, between Christina, our library director, and myself as well, because we'd often have back and forths about like thoughts on what do you think about this book for that for this person. And so it was pretty fun and joyful process. And then now being able to extend it to have students become book stylists is another fun part, to connect other members of the community together, not just between us as librarians and our patrons.
Absolutely. Next, I have a tech question. It's almost hard for me, at least, to imagine a time when the entire world wasn't skilled at using Zoom and every other online platform, but we were in a very different place in 2020 when you all were creating these programs. And a lot of libraries found it difficult to get up and running with all of the virtual programming that they were suddenly needing to do. Did you all struggle with that at all? And if so, what was the most impactful technology lesson you learned along that learning curve?
I guess I can kick us off. Well, thankfully, I had my 8th grade knowledge of iMovie to get me going. And as the only millennial on staff, I was kind of, the tech person. So I kind of led our trainings and did all the research into, what live stream options were and kind of how to work Zoom and how to get those features going. So I kind of did all the trainings for our staff to get that going while, working out my own programming. So that was fun. I'm definitely I even sent my 8th grade teacher a message saying, hey, thank you so much for forcing me to learn iMovie because I'm using it now. So that's my take.
I'm going to jump in really fast. It's funny because right before the pandemic happened, I came in with having been creating video content for the Hershey company. So I already had that in my wheelhouse of Adobe Premiere and filmmaking. What I think was encouraging our department to be producing online content for our Facebook channel. So we were already investing in equipment and more or less getting into this mindset of, okay, we're going to be doing this on a semi-regular basis before the pandemic happened. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, well, it's just movie making at home. So for my other colleagues, it was a little bit of a challenge. And so when I could help out, I did with their video editing. It really is time consuming. And I think that for a lot of librarians, being able to advocate for this is great, having online programming is excellent, and we're seeing these incredible, results, but it takes a certain amount of time to be able to execute it. And, if we are going to be continuing to execute online programming, we need to have a certain allotted amount of time to be able to do it in. And so, yeah, that's just the payoff.
Yeah, I can jump in. During that kind of reactive period, right when the school closed that I mentioned at the beginning, we were trying to scramble and figure out how can we be useful as librarians to our school community at this time. And so we realized that there was a whole range of skills levels among our faculty in terms of screencasting and Zoom and those kinds of things. So we thought, well, we don't know how to do everything, but being librarians, we know how to figure it out. And so we use that skill set to use Google and YouTube to figure out how to do these things and then try to be the guides for our faculty in that. And that was, again, it was satisfying, and I think it showed the community that, again, that we can be useful, which is always something as libraries we're always, of course, trying to do.
Unless anyone has an answer to that, I want to jump in with a great question from Donna in the chat. Donna's from a small and rural library, and she says that when their library went virtual, and it sounds like they are still virtual now, they captured a new audience with their virtual programming, but they lost a lot of adult audience members through things they had been attending, like author talks. Did that happen to any of your libraries? And have you all found a solution that worked for you?
I think these are different audiences. I don't think we can kind of control who's at the other end a lot of the time, because we do have people coming in the building, even though we're not doing in-person programming. we've had some folks who are finding the tech part challenging to come into the library. They borrow a Chromebook and a hotspot. We set them up in a study room and they virtually attend the event from within the library. So we actually hands-on help them. It doesn't necessarily help Donna with her audience still at home, but it's a really good question. How do you bridge that for someone who's never, loaded up a YouTube channel and watched a video on their TV or doesn't have a smartphone? There are a lot of hurdles as far as reaching maybe your previous audience. We did a lot also with putting information into the bags that people would pick up at curbside. So we went back to kind of paper promotions to help people know about things. That was one way we bridged.
In outreach, we are all about, we have a very remote region of Maryland that where it's very sparse, and a lot of our patrons are placed all over the place. We are catering to birth through 5. We also cater to senior citizens and nursing homes, and for our senior citizens, they're not always able to use these online Zoom platforms. They want a physical DVD, and they don't want an email. They want a physical person on the other end of that phone to talk to. And we get those phone calls. I think being in the library, provides us, even if the answer is no, being able to provide, that back and forth and have that communication with somebody, I think is very important. And it's challenging when the world moves so rapidly to an online platform, you lose that contact, with people. I think that, if you have people that are technologically a little bit challenged, or they're a little intimidated by new technology, having an online having an outreach program allows you to be able to engage with the public in that way and be able to provide them with the resources that they need. It takes a little more time because it is that personal interaction. But I think it's pretty worth it, especially that they feel very grateful to the library when somebody comes and delivers that material directly to their door.
Great, thank you. And I think we have time for one more question, and Deborah had another good question in the chat. She said, how do you deal with tech security, Zoom bombing, negative comments on Facebook, etc.? Did any of you face issues with that? And I guess, first of all, was that within your realm at your library to monitor?
Yeah, so part of the way that I made everyone do things was anytime we had a virtual program, there was at least one other person on staff who was off camera or who was logged into a moderating Facebook account with similar permissions, who could kind of check in and make sure everything was, clean, safe, kind. And it wasn't always necessary, but when things went wrong or when people couldn't get into the program, it was really, really helpful to have that second staff member there.
This was a huge issue because of the scale of what we were facing up against. And we ended up with bots that were posting onto our event at a pace that we couldn't keep up with human-wise. So that's one of the reasons we expanded to a team of 8, last minute, to try to manage some of that in real time. And we ended up having to close down some of the comment streams on the Facebook event, which was kind of a shame, but it was too much. We couldn't manage all the tails of those conversations. And it gave us pause about opening up comments in real time on other happenings, and it's a shame because that's a huge part of what people got so excited about. So figuring out, we did just some brainstorming with other organizations who were running into the same thing we were. So we did get advice from colleagues, and there are ways you can kind of right size your conversation in the background with filters and filter out certain words, certain locations. We had, if that's needed. So I think, again, just like the library programming interest group, to be able to crowdsource from other people that are in our same situation, ideas on the fly. And a lot of this has to happen in real time by tomorrow, figure it out. And so, I was impressed. I've been impressed with how our staff has stayed flexible to kind of reinvent themselves with each event and learn from that to the next one.
I think that the point about crowdsourcing is a great one to end on. If there's anything that was heartwarming about the entire COVID experience that, yes, we're still in, it's that people really did come together in the library field and help one another out. Thank you all again, truly all 6 of you, for presenting about your programs today. We really appreciate it. And thank you to everyone who attended. We will follow up with the slides. They are also available on the Programming Librarian webpage. And hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and feel free to reach out with any feedback or questions.